Today we're talking the impact of NASCAR, how Charlotte is being depicted in the media, and more. I'm Carlton Hargrove, and this is 282. All right, thanks folks for tuning into another episode of 282. As always, we've got a great discussion and some great information coming your way. We've assembled a great group of guests to talk about all these hot topics. But before we meet them, I want to say what's up, and I want you viewers at home to say what's up to 282 producer Jarvis Holiday. Jarvis is over in what I'm calling, because it's a NASCAR show, the winner's circle. What's up, Jarvis?
Winner's circle.
I think
that's the best one.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah. What did Ricky Bobby say? Second, I can't remember.
I was drunk when I...
Second's the first loser, that's right.
Okay.
But shout out to the people watching us on the live stream. You guys can follow us on Twitter at 282TV. Comment on some of the topics using hashtag 282TV, and we incorporate into the show.
Thank you, Jarvis. And didn't they shoot that movie, Talladega Nights, some of it like here or something like that? Mm-hmm. Okay, so it ties in a little bit. All right, let's meet the guests on today's show. First up, we've got Scott Lazis, who is the editor of the Charlotte Video Project, right? Up next, we returning to 282 once again is Brittany Kaysen, who is radio personality, does like 2 radio shows, writes for the Charlotte Observer, does everything, right? The queen of all media, right?
Well, I like to call myself an albino Jamaican because I work so much.
Tree job. Okay. Up last but not least, we've got David Oakley, who is the creative director of the Charlotte-based advertising agency BooneOakley.
Yes.
I got that right? Okay, cool. All right, so we're here for another episode. We're going to dive right into the conversation. We're going to start with you, Brittany. We're going to talk about Jamaican food. No.
Hey, Mom.
We're going to talk about NASCAR. So everybody knows that NASCAR has a huge presence in Charlotte. It economically, the impact is about $4 billion a year. $4 billion annually. About 80% of the drivers and the owners and stuff live in Charlotte and are based in Charlotte. They've got races coming up in, I guess, Memorial Day weekend, like the Coca-Cola 600. Mm-hmm. And the big Speed Street event is coming as well, which brings like hundreds of thousands of people onto the streets of Charlotte going crazy, watching music and just doing fan-type stuff. All that being said, all that stuff is really good, but the question I want to ask you is, as a city, we're kind of a button-down, kind of white-collar city. Are we comfortable enough to embrace that sort of down-homeness of NASCAR now? At least that's the stereotype of NASCAR. Are we at a point now where we're willing to embrace that aspect of Charlotte as a whole? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that NASCAR is really evolving more into being not just a blue-collar sport, but a white-collar sport. Because if you think about it, all the sponsors of the sport are typically, big corporations that spend a lot of money. And if you look at the drivers, they are, down-home rooted guys, mm-hmm. but they're also really rich, right. For starters.
They're rich down-home guys.
Yeah.
But isn't that the perception, though? I mean, we still kind of have a perception of Charlotte being like this bank town, and then NASCAR being sort of like this hoot-swilling kind of thing. I mean, have we evolved beyond that?
Well, NASCAR was here first. If you think about it, NASCAR started here. It was born here.
Right.
And, up at the lake, you've got all the race teams. You've got all where the drivers live. Mm-hmm. And then, the banking part of the town evolved later on. Okay. And I think the two cultures merge beautifully because they're both big businesses.
Right.
I mean, they might have different fan bases, per se, or different customers, but... Mm-hmm. Overall, they're both ultimately businesses. Okay. And it's a sport, so you do have a lot of fans. And, some people might not like to admit it, but they're NASCAR fans.
Think so? I want to ask you, you work in advertising and you're all about image and perception and things like that. Do you feel like that the two sides of the city, or those two kind of perceptions of the city, which mm-hmm. both are kind of stereotypical and generalizations, but do you feel like they kind of have found a nice relationship?
Yeah, I think there's a common thread, and you nailed it earlier. You said I think both white collar, blue collar like to swill hooch.
That's true. Go to Epicenter. There's a lot of hooch swilling. Too much hooch swilling. When the bankers get off, they go crazy, right?
Yeah, but I think NASCAR is a part of the culture of Charlotte, and I think mm-hmm. the more we embrace it, it's a good thing. It's who we are, and why run away from it? It's a great thing for the city.
But the question I want to ask, and Scott, I'll direct this to you. Do you feel like there is still a contingent of people who are saying, when people, like when Michelle Obama talks about Charlotte, she mentions NASCAR and barbecue and things like that, which some people say, well, that's not exactly Charlotte. I mean, and not that they're trying to necessarily disown it, but it doesn't match up with their own perception of what the city is. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, Charlotte is not a homogenous place. NASCAR and some of the other large industries in the region, bring a lot of capital to this part to this part of the state and the state at large. A lot of jobs are created here because of NASCAR and the banks and all the rest of them. What we're trying to do with our project is present some of the stories that you may not be familiar with that are part of the subcultures of Charlotte, the grassroots arts movements, nonprofits, sports teams that aren't the Bobcats.
Right. But we're gonna delve into that a little bit later too to get all specifics about that. But Brittany, as I said before, Speed Street's coming up. It's a big event, hundreds of thousands of people. I wonder, with you being the sort of the entertainment writer at the Charlotte Observer, can you give us a heads up on some things we should be looking out for? I mean, is there any acts or activities that people really should be looking out for during Speed Street?
Well, during Speed Street, all of the drivers will be downtown, and they make themselves very accessible to the fans. So you're going to have a lot of NASCAR fans down there. But what's also cool about Speed Street is they also bring in like R&B and hip hop acts, as well as country acts. So it's definitely a merger of different fan bases. So it's entertainment for everyone. And another great thing too about NASCAR is that they really give back to the community, and this is the home base for it. So Charlotte really benefits from that. In addition to the revenue, you have the sports fanmanship, but then also the philanthropy, like you were talking about. So,
well, do you feel like when you talk about NASCAR as compared to maybe basketball or football, do you feel like the actual athletes are more in touch with their fans?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. How so? I mean, what do you feel like is the difference between, say, somebody that plays for the Bobcats, somebody that plays for or that drives?
Well, most drivers usually win, for starters.
Oh, snap.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, wow.
I'm just kidding. I love the Bobcats. I'm just kidding. I'm not hating. I just had to throw in a little sports joke.
Well, many of them live here, and a lot, a lot
Exactly.
of professional athletes, in the city don't even really live here full time necessarily. I mean, is that true or no?
Well, most of them do, other than like Juan Pablo Montoya that lives in Miami.
Okay.
The majority of them live here. They were all out on the lake yesterday. Tony Stewart lives on a houseboat on the lake, and
Really? It was a houseboat?
Yeah, he lives on a boat on the lake. I know, that's why I was like, that's a good
boat.
idea. He is on a boat all the time. And then most of them live in like the Mooresville, Lake Norman area.
Right. Well, that being said, with Speed Street, all those guys down there, it's interesting that Speed Street is such a big event. I think somebody was throwing around a number like 400,000, something like that. But even compared to the DNC coming up, it's a bigger, in terms of people, in terms of economic impact, immediate economic impact. It's actually bigger than what's being projected for the DNC. And do you feel like this is sort of a dress rehearsal for us to a certain extent? I mean, because it is so close, this is probably the biggest event before
Yeah, but
the
I
DNC.
think it's just so different. This is entertainment and sports and fun, whereas the DNC is more, there are going to be a lot of parties, but it's more like for politicians. It's not like a free-for-all party, whereas this is just a big, huge block party, which if you are not going to the party, do not go uptown because it is crazy and you will not find a parking spot.
Yeah. Actually, I think Jarvis has some tweets regarding the topic that we're discussing.
Yes, we asked our Twitter followers several questions kind of dealing with NASCAR. The first was, we asked, does Charlotte fully embrace NASCAR as part of its image? At AJ Abernathy says, I'm not sure. I can't say that I've embraced it. The sport does nothing for me, but I'm a fan of whatever draws money into CLT. At Charlotte Beer says, it's that thing that everyone thinks should be a part of Charlotte's image, and yet few really seem to care about. At Davis 3380 says, in an era of niches and differentiation, big word, Davis, and differentiation, CLT has to distinguish itself somehow. For better or worse, NASCAR provides that. One of our former guest, Reading Road Charlotte, says, I think the face of NASCAR fan is changing in general. It just isn't the redneck fan anymore. There's a huge up-and-coming women fan base following which they've strategically capitalized marketing towards. And then when we asked what they were most looking forward to during Speed Street, which is May 24th through 26th, at Spencer Luter said he's looking forward to May 27th. So are you looking forward to being over? Okay. And at Daniel Roselli says, I'm looking forward to plenty of drunk people looking at Packet Place paint, jump, and staring at it until the image pops out. So it's just a lot of, you can see there's a lot of image problems with NASCAR in Charlotte.
I mean, there's a lot of divergent problems. Well, speaking of image, I want to actually move on. We were talking about the pitch and your company's role with the pitch. Recently, you guys were featured on the pitch. You went up against a New York-based company with Conversation or something like that. Yes. And I kind of want to just get your idea about what was it like working behind the scenes of the show. This is a reality show. Just tell folks what is the idea behind the pitch first.
Well, I think this was the idea was AMC TV wanted to do almost a spin-off of Mad Men. They're a very popular series that's based in the 60s on advertising, and the idea was, what's advertising like today? So they basically had this idea to pit two agencies against each other to go for one account. You're briefed, and basically you have 1 week to come up with some ideas, and then you have to go back, present them to the client, and then after you make your pitch, you find out the next day. They give you a call whether you won or lost, whether you made the perfect pitch, maybe whether you had the great idea in that amount of time. Yes.
Yeah. So you went up against the Conversation, and you were fighting over what account? Was it the Pop Chips thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Pop Chips is a brand of potato chips made in San Francisco.
Okay.
They're not fried, they're not baked, they're popped, kind of like rice cakes are popped. And supposedly they're, I won't say healthy, they're not as bad for you.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Well, you guys, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but you didn't win that.
What?
Did you?
What do you mean?
Sorry about that, man. I mean, I didn't know. I thought you knew.
You ruined it. I don't know what to say now.
Well,
gosh, bummer.
But the people that won got in a lot of trouble, right? Because of the Pop Chip, was some controversy behind that. Because Ashton Kutcher was like, was that their thing? And
that's really interesting. A lot of people actually thought that was the agency that we were competing against that actually won it. Did the Ashton, but that wasn't true. That was done by Zambezi, an agency out of Los Angeles that's been working with Pop Chips. Yeah, that was pretty bad. It was deemed as racist, making fun of the Indian culture, right? And it was,
Well, what was it like working behind the scenes of the show? I mean, you were saying before it was pretty stressful.
Well, I mean, we made the decision to go on the show because we thought it would be a great chance for us to expose ourselves, our brand, to the nation, raise our profile as BooneOakley, and hopefully do Charlotte proud. Really, that was kind of our intention going against an agency from New York. I didn't really understand. I mean, I've been on the other side of the camera. We've done a lot of commercials and different things over the years. But being on this side of the camera where you're mic'd and they're filming you for 12 to 14 hours a day for actually 9 straight days is amazing, and it's really, really difficult to actually get your work done and do a great job while being watched.
Right.
After the first day that we did it, and when we came back from San Francisco to brief our team, it was amazing the transformation in the agency. Everyone had a new hairstyle. Everyone had new clothes. I was like, "Who are you people?" But,
now there was an aspect of the show where you it was a homeless intern or something living in the building or something like that. Was this not real or what?
We made that up. No, I'm just kidding. No, we were trying to get no. Mass is our intern who came from Denmark.
Okay.
And when he first came to Charlotte, he was living at a motel. And we were like, "Where are you living?" He said, "I'm just in this motel. How much are you paying?" I'm like, $40 a night. It's kind of scary. I'm kind of driving.
$40 a night.
Yeah, it was.
Jesus.
Yeah, he got some great deal. I guess I don't know how great it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
But eventually, we said to him, "Why don't you just move in here? We have a couple of extra rooms. You've got a kitchen." And he was ecstatic about that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's real nice. Now, before I want to kind of toss this around, I want to start with you though.
Okay.
In terms of we were talking about image and stuff like that, but in terms of branding, I mean, what is your position on that? Just that terminology. Now, I think a lot of people they throw the word around so cavalierly now,
Right.
but in terms of branding, when applies to Charlotte. How good of a job do you think that we're doing with branding Charlotte? If there's even a tug of war between NASCAR and the bank world, how good of a job do you think we're doing with that?
I think that we're doing a better job of branding Charlotte every day, and I think right now you're branding Charlotte because you have it's good though. You have your own brand, and you're speaking about the great things that are going on in the city. The show is an example of branding the city and talking about good things that we have to do. These guys here with me today are doing exactly the same thing. It's great. Branding everyone is a brand, and we're speaking about Charlotte, the brand.
Well, let me toss that idea around. And Scott, I mean, you're working directly with something like this. Were your efforts the direct result of the fact that you thought that we weren't doing a good job branding the city, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think Charlotte, we've talked about, has a very corporate branding, and not that there's anything terribly wrong with that, but for instance, if you look at other markets, when you look at New Orleans, when you look at Nashville, when you look at San Francisco, you look at these places, they had a very strong subcultures that grew. And yes, there are big companies in all of those cities. But it seems like Charlotte's kind of been backwards in a lot of ways, that they have big business come and drawn a lot of people in. But once those people are here, they want, the talent. Once that talent is here, we want to keep them here with great, arts culture,
right,
and events and all those things.
Okay.
So I mean, I think the real question here is, what is Charlotte about?
Okay.
And that's a tough question to answer. I mean, NASCAR is certainly a part of it, especially since we've got the NASCAR Hall of Fame, the banks, of course, some other very big businesses, Lowe's, et cetera. But beyond that, like, what are Charlotte's people about, and what is the Charlotte culture about?
Right.
That's something that's a little trickier to delineate.
Okay. Brittany, how good of a job do you think we're doing branding Charlotte to the rest of the country and the world?
Well, I think it's a difficult thing to do just because Charlotte is so diverse, because you do have, like you said, you have the people that are here with the corporations, but they're not corporate outside of work. And then, you're reaching very eclectic things. I've been to almost every city, and I feel like Charlotte has like a little bit of Austin, a little bit of San Francisco, a little bit of New York, a little bit of Texas. I guess that could be the NASCAR analogy. But I feel like Charlotte's just so diverse that it's hard to just put a title on it.
Okay.
Well, I'll add to that just for a second. I think Charlotte's got a lot. And I think what you guys are doing is like, I know you guys are going to give me a hard time about that, for bringing that up.
That was his campaign.
Oh, what? I was wondering. Okay.
But what I think that Scott is doing right now that's absolutely brilliant is bringing the true fabric of the city together. The things that aren't really publicized as much are really, you're bringing it to the forefront, and that is absolutely brilliant. I'm really excited to see what more you're going to do with the video project.
Well,
That's
and
a nice
just to that
segue.
point,
I'm
I
sorry.
think just one and that's an important part of it is that we have. So today we released a piece on the Actors Theater of Charlotte. Next week we're going to release something that on some businesses in Charlotte, and they're very diverse, the story ideas, but encapsulating them in this unified campaign that is the Charlotte Video Project. It sort of shows the multi-facets of the city, the diversity and the various talent that resides here.
Well, before we get too deep in that direction, I do want to just have you explain just what the Charlotte Video Project is.
Yeah.
Just as kind of establish that for viewers.
Yeah, so the Charlotte Video Project was created by myself and my creative partner, Kevin Beatty, who is also the cinematographer for all of our projects. Or all the projects that we're working on. We're actually starting to get some contributions from other very talented filmmakers here in Charlotte who are working on some great projects as well. But the idea of the Charlotte Video Project was to raise awareness of the subcultures and various ventures that are not as well known in Charlotte through web video. And we're doing 100 short films about Charlotte in anticipation of the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, then using that event as a springboard to showcase all of the great things that Charlotte has to offer. I think, this is a much larger example, but I think the way China treated the Olympics several years ago was as a coming out party. They had, an incredible opening ceremony. They had all sorts of different media things going on, and it was used to show that, China is this very rich cultural place,
Right.
and there was a lot of controversy and everything, but there was conversation. And that's what I think is Charlotte is missing in large part is not even being part of the conversation. The New York Times dropped the comma NC after Charlotte, after the DNC was announced here. But a lot of times you do have to qualify Charlotte as North Carolina. Some people think Charlottesville, Virginia,
Right, yeah.
or Charleston, South. So it's a matter of really putting Charlotte on the map in a very grassroots way, which I think most cities that's how they get their fame.
Right. Well, talking about the actual films, how long, when you say short films, how long are you talking?
So a lot of our films are about 3 to 5 minutes long.
Okay.
We're actually working with the Charlotte in 2012 DNC host committee on a number of pieces, and they have certain guidelines. They have to be exactly 2 minutes. They have to talk about certain ideas and communicate information as effectively as possible. So there's that sort of type of projects that we're working on, and then a lot of our projects and how we started the project, the whole project was with this very fly on the wall approach to filmmaking. Some call it direct cinema, and the idea was we don't want people to see people talking, just saying, "Oh, Charlotte's a great place,"
Right.
it's great. We wanted to show it and to see people in their working environments. Doing the things that they're very passionate about and actually visualizing it so that the rest of the world isn't skeptical when they say, Charlotte's a great place. Why is it a great place? I want
Right.
to see that. And that's the power of web video, is that you can visualize all these things that happen.
That's cool. Now, I do want to kind of ask you a question, and maybe Brittany can chime in too. With a project like that, it kind of seeks to sort of, add other dimensions to our perception of the city. And you obviously were involved with the Charlotte's Got a Lot campaign. Right now, what would you say are some aspects of the city that are not getting enough play that people don't know enough about? Are there groups or neighborhoods or?
Yeah, I think neighborhoods is a great example. I think restaurants are a great example. I mean, I think a lot of times the fallback is the things that get publicity or are really branded as Charlotte's are partners, with the city or with Charlotte's Got a Lot, the regional CRVA. A lot of the things that, like that we go out to dinner at, or things that we do as people maybe aren't quite as publicized. And I think that really makes up the fabric of this town. And I think what you guys are doing is just awesome.
Well, what about you, Brittany?
Well,
What are some things that you feel like people should be, some things that kind of should bubble up a little bit more to the top of mind for people when talking about the city of Charlotte?
Well, there's a lot of stuff kind of off the beaten path that doesn't get a lot of publicity because they don't advertise or they're just not talked about, which is, with my job at the Paid to Party at the Charlotte Observer, I try to highlight those things, events that are going on at, in the little hole in the wall at Plaza Midwood. Because there's so much art and culture and just fun in general and great people in these places that I think people do need to travel off the beaten path and to explore that and to really get deep down into Charlotte, and again, that just venture off of the stereotype of kind of what Charlotte nightlife.
Right. So with your films, I know you talked about Actors Theater, but who are some other folks that you highlight?
So our pilot video was, which the idea was recommended by my best buddy, was on Grateful Growers Farm and Harvest Moon Grill. It's a farm to fork restaurant relationship. Organically raised pork is served to Charlotteans, both in the farmers market and Harvest Moon Grill, which is uptown. We've done a piece on Hackerspace Charlotte, which everyone should know about. Hackerspace is this collective of techies that get together. I think they have about 40 or 45 running members, and they build stuff. They have a Guinness World Record for the largest QR code, which you can go on Google Earth and zoom in and scan it. It brings you to their website. They just do really cool things, educating people on how technology is evolving. We did a piece on the North Carolina Dance Theater, which we'll be releasing soon. We did a series called Body and Voice that is featuring some of the best non-musical performance artists who rely on body movement and the voice. So that's comics, actors, poets.
Okay.
We released one of those this morning as well, Carlos Robeson. Doing all kinds of things. I mean, like I said, we want it to be diverse. We want to cover as many different topics as possible. That's in the arts, that's industry, that's nonprofits, that's athletics. all sorts of those things. And what's great about the project and what we wanted to do from the beginning was to get some contributions from other filmmakers, which we're just now starting to get. It's really diversifying not only the content of the project, but also the style of it. And that's very exciting.
So where can people watch the films? First off, I mean, obviously there's some places online, and I want you to kind of tell us those, but do you have any kind of like, screening,
We've done
parties or
some. Yeah,
whatever
we've done
for it?
some like public screenings or physical screenings like on an actual projector.
Okay.
But I mean, this is a web campaign, really.
Okay.
It's purely driven by the web. I was explaining earlier that it was if we did get some television syndication, we wouldn't turn it down, obviously.
Right.
And physical screenings are definitely something we're gonna want to do more of, especially when the DNC is in town. But we really want this to be a web campaign where people can share these things and really get some ownership of the especially people in Charlotte, that they can claim some ownership of the community in which they reside.
So where can they go?
Right.
Just
So
like
if you go to
YouTube or something?
charlottevideoproject.com, right now there's just a video of my business partner and me talking about the project. But there's a link to our YouTube there where you can access most of our films, and then the pieces that we worked on with the Charlotte in 2012 host committee are on their website, charlotteinto2012.com, under the Carolina Stories.
Okay.
Within the next month, we're going to have the Charlotte Video Project built out so that it houses all of our content, and then by the convention, we'll have all 100 videos embedded on that page. It'll be very easy for people to take it, share it, embed it, do whatever they want with it.
That's cool.
For free.
Well, folks, we're running out of time, but I just want to say thank you all for joining us. It's been a lot of good information. I appreciate it. And thank you, folks at home, for watching us once again. Tune in next week for our season finale is actually on location at Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. It's all about comics. Cool. So tune in next week, and thanks.